All right. Hello, hello. So happy to be here live with everyone. I am so excited to be here and to be sharing this space with y'all. Whether you're here live or whether you are watching on replay, I really do appreciate you all. And I do see some Soul Fam in the chat. Hello, Lynn. So good to see you. I can see that Tim is watching on replay. So thank you, Tim. I appreciate you so much. Hello, Corbin, of course. So good to see you here. Ah, and look at that. Hello, Emma. So good to see you too. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate y'all showing up and coming to this live. All right, so let's just jump into it. Before we get into the content, though, I did want to, of course, share my website here with y'all, showing you a little bit of what I got going on. If you want to know more about my sessions, about my practice, if you want to get to know me a little bit more, feel free to check this out. I also have a new bookings page, so you can see my bookings here. You can book your free preliminary consultation if you are interested in chatting beforehand, or go ahead and schedule that session as well right through here. So that is something that you can check out. And other than that, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel if you have not already. I really do appreciate the support. And of course, liking it helps boost that video and get it out in front of more people, which is the goal. All right. Yes, enjoy your dog walk, Lynn. Hope you enjoy it. I wish it was a little bit warmer, but we are getting warmer weather this weekend, so I'm excited for that. All right, all right. So jumping on in today, we are talking about my awakening journey. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background on kind of how I got to this point and what my journey looked like, as well as getting into my first hypnosis experience and a little bit of how that played out for me and what that was like. And then also stay tuned for the end, because I do have a couple announcements as well of some upcoming stuff that you will be interested in, I think. So all exciting stuff. All right. So my awakening, like everyone out there, my journey was unique to me. And as I was reflecting on it, looking back on my journey and kind of growing up and into young adulthood, um, it took me a little bit of time, as it does everyone, to kind of find my way in the world. Hi, Carol. So good to see you. Uh, my early life, I grew up in a pretty conservative Christian household. We went to a Baptist church when I was really young, and then we went to sort of a non-denominational Christian church when I was a little bit older. And I was born in California, but grew up in rural northern Minnesota. So in a town called Hibbing. If y'all know Bob Dylan, he is from there. Funny fact, my grandma went to high school with Bob Dylan. So that's pretty cool. That like once removed from a celebrity, right? But growing up in the environment that I did, in the place that I did, it definitely shaped me and put me on this path for sure. Because although I definitely went through some periods of I guess resentment and anger towards the religious upbringing that I had, there was at the core of it, the teachings were love and really valuing individuals, valuing people, treating people with love and kindness. And I think that those are the things that stuck with me and that I really resonated with. But it was definitely a different paradigm than I'm living in now. And those of you who maybe grew up in more traditional religion and left that for more of a spiritual path, you'll understand a little bit of my path and how I got here. But it certainly was a interesting journey, and it took me a long time to start to break out of that. So I guess one of the main pieces that I think is important to know, And a big piece of my awakening journey was me being gay, and that experience growing up in a Christian conservative home, and the shame, the secretiveness sort of um, that sort of environment, I guess, forced me into, or that I ended up falling into. And my parents have been and are still very loving, and I adore them, and they really have been such a huge pillar in my life of support and encouragement throughout all phases, and no matter what my beliefs have been or how they might differ with my families. But was certainly foundational, this experience of feeling like I had to hide a huge part of myself, and that I couldn't be open with my family, with friends. Um, we were not just casual churchgoers. We were very involved in the church, and I was on the church music team. I helped out in like the kids programming, and children's church and stuff like that. I even helped out in the nursery and like babysat and stuff like that. So like very, very involved in the church. And while it gave me and really instilled in me the importance of community and having that uh, you know soul family around you, and my soul family has shifted and changed over the years, but that sense of community and the love was foundational for sure. So without getting too wrapped up in the weeds of like my early years, because certainly that was foundational for who I am as a person today. um, right, Emma? I definitely agree. It is very interesting where life puts us to learn, and that's something that I have had to I guess reckon with as an adult. And I certainly went through a lot of anger and resentment, like I said, and had to come to this point of realizing that I uh, I was in that situation because I planned my life that way before I incarnated. And it was certainly um, a bit of a tough lesson to realize, or a tough reality, I guess, to realize that I planned that. But it was so freeing in the sense that it helped me to um, see the value in all the experiences in life, and to see how even those situations that can be so challenging in the moment can go on to lead you to greatness, or whatever you want to say. Um, so I guess moving into more of my moving out of high school and into my young adult years, I moved from rural Minnesota back to California, and I moved in with my grandparents in the San Francisco Bay Area. And it's just kind of funny to think about ending up back there, because those of you who know San Francisco, it's a pretty gay city, and it has certainly shifted and changed over the years, I think. But um, it was funny to end up there, and yet still be so enmeshed in the church. So uh, yes, right, Emma, our higher selves do have a sense of humor, I think. And I've really experienced that in sessions with clients. And some of my favorite moments are the moments where the higher self and I get to have a good laugh about something, and whether it be a silly human perspective that we have, or whether it be they can be funny in unique ways. And so that's one perk of my job, is I get to talk with higher selves, and to have these engagements like one-on-one, and it's really cool. And I definitely agree, Corbin. It is, I think, hugely transformational when we realize that we have planned our lives. And although we might not always understand in the moment, or even afterwards, it sometimes takes a while to recognize what we were going through and why we were going through it. And sometimes it fits into a larger context, right? And that's where past life work can be so impactful, is you can see that through line and that kind of context for your life in this lifetime as well as other lifetimes. And it helps you to have that perspective. And of course, you can ask your higher self too, why did I plan this? Why did I go through that? And that is one of the big questions that I have clients coming with is, why did I go through that experience as a child? Or why was I in that family? Like, what was the purpose of that? And so it's definitely interesting to think about and interesting to explore, personally, but then also for me, I get to explore it with other folks, and it's such an honor and a privilege. Um, so getting back to my move to the Bay Area, I moved to San Francisco, but I certainly didn't leave the church right away. And I moved in with my grandparents, and I started going to this mega church out there. And it was at first really, really cool because I thought, wow, these cool people, these cool, this cool stage, this cool music group. They've got the fog machines, they've got the drum set, they've got the flashing lights. Like, it was very wow factor, right? And if any of you have been to a mega church, or if you have been to anything similar to that, you'll know that it is quite the experience. And for me, I thought, like, how cool, I'm finally with like the cool kids, right? I went to a small church and now I'm at a big church. Um and yet it was the perfect, like, the perfect situation for me to grow in and to move more towards my soul purpose, my soul calling, and really set me on the journey, because through my experiences there, it allowed me to see the reality of religion. And I certainly don't mean to, like, hate on all religions or hate on religious people, because I think that there's value in some of the teachings. But I think when we look at things from a deeper perspective, and we look at things for what they truly are, and in the context of um, the entirety of, like, religious studies and stuff, we can see that it's not what it seems on the surface. And there was moments where I realized, like, the budgeting of the church and the amount of money that they had coming in. Hi, Lisa. Hey, Lisa, so good to see you. Thanks so much for coming. I do appreciate you. Seeing into kind of the well, I guess I should mention too, not only was I going to this church, but I was working at this church. So I got a job at a coffee shop in that church. And so I got to see kind of behind the curtain, and I saw the way that politics worked within that institution. I saw the ways that money was used in that institution. And all in all, those pieces just started to kind of chip away at what I thought I knew so deeply. My first tattoo was "He is greater than I," a Christian tattoo. And I thought, my views on God and religion are never going to change, right? And yet they did. And it was slow at first, but I bring up my gay experience, and being something other than straight, really led me to question things in a different way. Because when I tell you that, like, the amount of times that I was crying in my room, like, alone, just like crying and like asking God to change me and to, like, make me straight, and, like, please, God, like, this is what you're saying, right? So, like, get me get me out of this situation. And all of my prayer and all of my tears did not change that fact, turns out. And so it was something where I got to this point where I just realized, oh, I need to like reconcile, like, my lived experience and also my religion. I needed to figure out how was I going to, like, work with this, because they just didn't seem to jive. And so I kind of fell down this rabbit hole of gay Christianity, which um, some of you may know, maybe you don't, but there is a subgroup of Christians who are accepting of gay people, and also very Christian, and still very traditional in that sense. And so it was a a period of my life where I was really like digging into the Bible and the Bible verses and what I was told versus what was actually in the scriptures. And this was something where I started to realize how translations can really have an effect on on the words that end up on the page, right? And I was always taught that the Bible was the word of God, and I was taught that these divine words, that they were straight from the lips of God. Um, and it took a while for me to realize that that was not the case, and that there were human beings involved in not only writing the Bible, but then also in translating the Bible from its original language, and not only like translating it once, but translating it multiple times. It goes through multiple languages to get to this point. Oh, hello. Hey, Beth. So good to see you. Thanks so much for coming. And so that was kind of a rabbit hole that I fell down, and I I started to realize that there are other opinions out there. And the more that I dug in, the more that I learned, I was like, yeah, this is like resonating with me, or like this is at least at least aligning with like my lived experience versus um what everyone was telling me. And and so from there, like I guess I shifted into being, I guess, a gay Christian, right? And I was there for a time, and I was still holding on to my religion, while also embracing um, my homosexuality, right? And yet there was the snowball had started to roll, and the momentum had started already. And so um, I guess before I jump ahead into um, kind of college, another piece to work into this was that when I moved out to California, I really like heavily got into the seedier sides of life, and I was kind of having sex with anything and everything out there. And I was really like, I felt free in a sense because I wasn't living with my parents anymore, and I thought I could do whatever I want. And it's something that has gotten me in trouble in my life, where I think that I have, that I need to rebel, and I need to do the counterculture thing, that I need to go, and if someone tells me to do something, I got to do the opposite. But I think that piece, the sex piece, fits in because it really started to compound the shame and the secretiveness again. Because even though I was like starting to be more open and accepting myself, there was still this wall up, and there was still this bigger secret that I was keeping. Um, but at this point, I was in college as well, um, and well, I was in college out in California, but I eventually decided to move back to Minnesota with my family. And uh, this was for a variety of reasons, but ultimately, I couldn't afford to live out there still and go back to school. And so it was back in good old Hibbing, Minnesota, where I took a introduction to world religions class. And at this point, I had mostly left Christianity behind. I had kind of decided, this isn't resonating with me anymore. And I'd read some Joseph Campbell. If y'all know Joseph Campbell, I'm sure many of you do. Read his work on like the hero's journey, and like the mythologies of the world, and how they all connect and tie together. And so when I took this world religions course, it further emphasized that idea to me, that there are these through lines in the big religions of the world, and they all say very similar things, and they all have these similar stories and these similar characters. And it was really a big paradigm shift for me to realize that these were all connected, and these were all feeding off of each other, coming out of similar histories. And I'm certainly not a religious studies expert by any means. I've dabbled a little bit, but those similarities and connections between them really showed me um, showed me a different side of history, and was one of those puzzle pieces that started me on my awakening journey. And all of these are little steps in that direction, and I'm sure y'all can relate, where sometimes you don't realize the little steps until you're further down the path, and then you see, oh, that's where I was going, or that's where that led me. um Right, Beth, I agree. It is very curious, and I think we have parts of the truth and parts of the information, but I think there's more, um, that can be unearthed. And that's one of the things that I love about hypnosis and the work that I do, is that I get to explore these sorts of lost knowledge, or hidden histories. I've had some interesting experiences exploring Lemuria and other ancient periods of time. And I would love it if the Bible came up and we got some information on that, because it's so fascinating. I mean, I've read some of Dolores Cannon's work on Jesus and the Essenes, and so we get a little bit more of information there. But certainly something that I think we're still waiting on some of that information. But um, it really is so fascinating, right, Lisa? Um, Absolutely, Emma. Doing things because we think it's going to help, but it doesn't. Have to learn through experience, not other people's advice. Yep, that's been one of my big lessons, and I think that's a big lesson for a lot of us humans. There is only so much advice that we can take, and part of this human experience is the experience, right? And it is going out there and making mistakes, and remembering that at that higher level, from our higher self perspective, there really are no mistakes. There are simply different opportunities and different paths, and that's where, talking about timelines and alternative paths that we can take. I think it really helps us to understand that, and release that worry that we're going to take the wrong path. Because I hear oftentimes from higher selves, when I have clients come, so often one of their questions is like, am I off track? Like, am I on my path? Like, how far off track am I? Like, what do I need to get back on my path and on my purpose? And I would say almost every time, I'm trying to think if there was an exception. I would say almost every time the higher self says, you're not as far off track as you think you are. You really are doing just fine. And it can sometimes, again, be hard to see that larger context, from our perspective here, embodied in our human physical bodies. But definitely, I think, valuable. So all in all, I feel like I'm getting a little bit in the weeds, but that's okay. We're going with the flow, and I'm sharing what feels important to share. But um, ultimately, through my studies, through my learning, through the books that I read, through talking with other people, I found my way outside of religion, and I left Christianity behind. And at first, it felt really exciting, and it felt really freeing. I identified as an atheist for quite some time, and proudly an atheist, and very much like, laughing and judgmental of religion, judgmental of spirituality. I was very much like a proud atheist. and and really embracing the world, and embracing worldliness. And I guess that might be more of like a Christian thing, but I know growing up, like, we were taught not to be of the world, and that meant, having sex and doing drugs and drinking and partying and all those bad things that we're not supposed to do. And certainly I've learned that discernment is important, and that not all experiences are good experiences. At least, I should say not good. I should say not all experiences are pleasant experiences, right? Um, because sometimes you learn through those tough lessons. But I think that it was really a moment where I, like, kind of let loose and thought, I'm gonna live in hedonism, and I'm going to do whatever I feel called to do, whatever I want to do. And that really included sex, that included drugs. I have never really been a huge drinker, but I've dabbled in my time, and I've had some really poor experiences with liquor. My body does not like it at all, and has never liked it at all. And so I've learned that that's not a good thing for me or my body. But um, at the same time, I also started to have some really joy-filled experiences. Going out and dancing was something that started, in the club scene, like drinking, doing drugs, whatever. But the joy that you get from dancing, like I still have that joy till today. So it wasn't all bad, but it certainly was a little bit, maybe a little bit free form, a little bit. I lacked some boundaries, and I lacked some accountability to myself, because again, I felt like I was free and clear, and there's no higher up, so like it's fine, I can do whatever I want. Turns out I was wrong about that. um, because ultimately the place that atheism and lack of any sort of belief in anything beyond my immediate physical reality led me to this place of hopelessness and this place of depression. And I didn't necessarily at first realize that that's where it was coming from. But once I've refound spirituality and I found a belief in something beyond, I realized where that depression was coming from, and it left me. And so I think that that's a really important piece of this story, is the ways that lack of belief really led me to a darker place. And what first felt like freedom ended up being, just a new set of shackles. And it took me a while to realize that. And it took me, finding a new belief and finding a new way of understanding the world to break out of that. Which was, again, a sort of gradual process. I would say that there was gradual changes until 2020, and I think that many of us experienced a huge shift in 2020, whether or not you were awake before or not. It was a huge shift, and I really believe that it was a huge shift of awakening for many on the planet. And that is one of the beautiful things of what we went through, was the trigger of awakening, and then also the space that we got after that. And Lisa, I know you're in the chat. Definitely I think you talk about this in your book, of that quietness that we got when we were confined to our homes and we weren't going out and seeing people or doing things. It really allowed for space to be alone with your own thoughts and not have so much external stimuli and external people, telling you what to believe or what. Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, we were all there. We were there. And so it was truly a big shift, and it was not so much, you know, it was a couple different pieces. So ultimately in 2020, I had just gotten a promotion, and I started a new management job at a coffee shop, and literally got promoted 2 months before uh, everything went down, and before March, and when the shutdown started to happen. And that was, uh, honestly, I don't remember a whole lot of that year, or even a lot of the next year. I mean, bits and pieces, but the anxiety and the stress that I had, as you know, um, I'm an empathetic person. I care about people, and my uh, I felt such a huge sense of responsibility in my position, especially like serving people like food and beverage, and you know we didn't know what was going on at first, and I certainly at that point was still listening to the narrative and still listening to the mainstream, and the fear and the panic and the stress that I had. I mean, it was wild. I remember months where every single day I would go to work and I would have dry mouth from the moment that I got there to like the moment I left, just like anxious and stressed, and like spray bottle, like spraying down every surface with disinfectant. Like it was really wild. Um, right? I know. It really does all blend together, and I can't believe it's 5 years either. It's like it's wild to see how far we've come and how much time has elapsed. Um, but it was sort of a slow. I've never been great at journaling, and so some of the details and some of the timeline of my whole journey has been lost to the years, which is okay. But I think that some of the ways that things lined up. Um, I'm not 100% sure on those details because again, like we're talking about, things blurred together, and it was such an interesting time. But um, ultimately, through my job, through what was going on in the world, like my fear and my hopelessness just grew and grew and grew. And you know, I didn't ever want to be in that job forever, but especially after what was going on, I felt very stuck and I didn't see any sort of a path out or any sort of a way um to escape my reality at that point and the paradigm that I was in. But slowly things started to fall into place to line me up to that escape route, to that path. So really my first and I guess I shouldn't say first definitively, but one of the early memories that I have of kind of dipping my toes into the woo woo was tarot. And this was a dear Scorpio friend of mine. I worked with her at one of the coffee shops I worked at, and she introduced me to tarot. And I even have the tarot symbols tattooed on my hands. I got them tattooed there before I really even understood exactly what I was doing. But um it's funny to look back and see what a perfect tattoo that was for me in the end of things. But introducing me to tarot, it was something that I was like interested in. It really piqued my interest, but I didn't feel necessarily like I understood the full picture yet. And I had another friend who also was a Pisces. I'm a Pisces. She's a Pisces. We really connected and started to get into witchcraft a little bit. And it was certainly something that really intrigued me, and the ritual of it and the history of it, and the ways that it incorporated nature and these natural elements. There was a lot of pieces of it that I really loved and that I really resonated with. Um, but ultimately, like, witchcraft in and of itself didn't really fit my molds exactly, and especially those darker sides of witchcraft where people use it for um more nefarious things, for hurting others or revenge. Like those sorts of things really didn't jive with me, or resonate with me. It wasn't something that I was interested in. But these, witchcraft and tarot were some of those first pieces that kind of fell into place, where I was like starting to open my eyes to something beyond my atheism that I was still, leaning into at that point. Um, and it was, it's so fitting that here I am on YouTube doing a live, sharing my awakening story, because YouTube was where I really originally found sort of a community, and where I found access to that information that I hadn't found anywhere else. I got into the truther information. I got into more of the metaphysical. I got into there was a couple different channels, but one channel in particular where and I do have to give credit to Corbin, my husband, because he introduced me to this channel. And I didn't really realize at first what we were getting into. I was like, "Oh, this is interesting. This is different, huh?" And it was, people talking about the realities going on in our world, what's really going on with our government, what's really going on with our culture and our society, what's really going on with our history, what's really going on here. And I had a lot of skepticism at first. I had some like, oh, Oh, I don't know about that one. That feels weird, or that feels gross, or especially as like a very empathetic person. And um I definitely tend to gravitate more towards the light and the lighter side of things. And um I've realized that that is part of what I'm here to do, is to anchor that light. But at the same time, I realized that that my aversion to the darkness meant that I wasn't necessarily facing everything that I needed to, both inside myself and inside the world. And that in order to really have a clear view of the world and what's going on, that I needed to at least be open to what's going on the dark and the light, because there is darkness and light in the world, and there certainly are characters who are not here for our best and highest good. Um, I certainly think that it's important not to focus overly on those people and what they're doing, because the more focus and attention we give, the more thought energy we give them, the more that that is anchored into our reality. But we still got to acknowledge what's going on, and use our power and use our free will to manifest the light and bring that in. Anyway, getting into the weeds, um, I think that it's definitely important to mention YouTube, mention that channel, because slowly I was being dripped this truth and these alternate perspectives and this honesty that, again, I like hadn't found anywhere else. Um and from people that I really resonated with, and that I could tell were coming from a place um of caring for the humans that were watching, that they were coming from this place of, we want to support you, we want to bring you the information, we want to bring you the truth. Um and and I think that authenticity is what helped me to realize like the truth in what they were saying. Because even though I didn't realize that I was being intuitive in that moment, I was using my intuition to suss out like who's saying what, and is it true and is it not true. So it was this slow process of awakening, and it happened really internally at first. And I'm sure many of you um, who have gone through this journey can attest to, like, there's a level of like you got to do it internally first before you can talk about it or bring it out to the world. And I'm so grateful that I've had my husband on this journey with me, because having a partner who is willing to like question things and seek out the truth, and not just fall in line with what the majority is saying, um like really helped encourage me and help me to be strong in going off on our own. Because I spent a lot of my life, and both being a Christian and not, like, worried about how others perceive me. And trust me, it's still it's still something that I struggle with a little bit, sometimes a lot of bit. But I'm learning to regulate that more, and to remember to go internally, and validate myself. Because we got to support ourselves, um and that's part of why we're here on this earth so often, is um to realize our individuality, to realize that we have the answers inside of ourselves. And that we are here to realize that, and to shine our own light, not just to be sheep and follow along with whatever. Right, Emma, makes a huge difference. I feel for those who are in families where the last years have split their values. Yeah, yep. It definitely is a very polarized world at this point. And I think, oh yeah, especially those living under the same roof. I think we have um, a lot of that polarity showing itself right now, because it's we're being called towards realizing our unity and returning back to a balance and a cooperation, rather than this competition. And I feel like it's like the polarity is being amplified and accentuated and like built up because it's pushing us to realize how it is dividing us and how these these beliefs and values are can divide us. But I think a big part of my journey has been realizing the ways that I've come almost full circle. And I found that talking with my family, who are still very, very much Christian, still believe in God in that traditional sense, I can switch some of my words and I can say God instead of source, and I can say, prayer instead of, manifestation or energy work. And I can talk to them in a way that they understand and that they can connect with. And it's helped me to realize the ways that this spoken language, this English that we use, or whatever language you're speaking, the spoken word is so limiting. And that's where I'm so excited for this shift that we're moving towards with more and more people waking up to their telepathic abilities and moving more towards that point where we're going to be able to connect thought to thought. And I think that is going to be such a more effective way of communicating. Any of you who have experienced that can attest to how powerful that connection and that telepathic communication can be. But anyway, uh, ultimately, it was around that time that I got into hypnosis. And so, oh, hey, Ken, so good to see you. Thanks so much for joining. No worries about being late. I appreciate you being here. It was about that time that I got into hypnosis, and it was so funny because the um, the person who opened my eyes to hypnosis was actually my district manager at the coffee shop I was working at. So this was my boss, and he he affectionately called me his favorite conspiracy theorist. And so when we would have good conversations, because he maybe laughed at me a little bit, but at the same time like believed in some of what I was saying and some of what I was bringing. Oh, that's so funny. You say angel, I say ET. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's great. That's great. Um, so it's around that time that I got a book from my district manager, and he gave me this book, and he was like, I think you're gonna like this. And I was like, oh, okay. Sure, I'll give it a try. I knew nothing about hypnotism. I knew nothing about past lives. And honestly, I didn't even really know what this book was like going to be about. But it was a book about Atlantis and Lemuria. And it was written through this woman's sessions where she did past life regression. She did QHHT, which is one of the techniques I practice to explore these ancient times. And so she had clients who went to Atlantis, went to Lemuria, and she wrote this book about that story and that experience and what the information she got coming through. And it was very new information to me. When I say like I didn't know what I was getting into. I really didn't. Here, just give me one moment. Throat's getting a little dry. But it was fascinating because as new and unfamiliar as this information was, it really resonated with me in a deep way, in a way that I hadn't resonated with something in a while. And it was the first piece in this puzzle, because I devoured that book. I got her other book. I devoured that other book. And then I was like, okay, so she's doing hypnosis to get this information. That's wild. How did she do that? Like, what's that about? So then from there, I found my way to QHHT, found my way to Dolores Cannon, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with the name Dolores Cannon. But she was the pioneer of one past life regression technique called quantum healing hypnosis technique. And so I started to read more about her. I was interested in reading some of her books. And ultimately, I found out that I could actually learn this technique and I could learn how to do this myself. And that was a really cool realization. And not only that, but like I could do it from the comfort of my own home. They had remote classes available, and I really wanted to be able to tap into this sort of information and to get into um, this ability to access hidden information like this, to explore history in this way, to get to the root of spiritual knowledge, to ask these big questions. Like, it was just so fascinating to me, right, Corbin? I know I haven't read those ones yet. You beat me to it, but really interesting stuff. For those of you who don't know, Dolores had a client who was able to connect in and speak with Nostradamus, or was it that Nostradamus came through her client? I want to say that he was like an assistant to Nostradamus, and so there was like this connection. But super fascinating stuff, because she really got into that and exploring his prophecies and being able to get more information from him directly about what he meant and what he saw there. Super fascinating stuff. But ultimately, once I realized that I could learn this, I was like, I need to go for it. It was like this pull that even though I was a little bit skeptical, I was like a little bit like, okay, this is a lot of money. This is kind of a big commitment. Like, is this really something I should do? Like, I took some time, I thought about it, and still I was feeling this pull, and I was like, okay, I guess I need to do this. And so I signed up for the course. I began to study, and while I was going through and studying her course, I started to read Dolores's books as well. And it was so cool to be able to not only be learning the technique and how it all works and how it all plays out in a session, while also being able to read such interesting, fascinating information that she uncovered in her own sessions. And I had really quite a profound experience with one of my first practice sessions, because like many modalities out there, I had to do my practice first, and I offered my sessions for free to folks who I knew. And I started with friends and family, and then I started to branch out and had some other strangers pop up who were interested. And it was one of those strangers who I had a beautiful session with, and when their higher self came through, their higher self had a direct message for me. And that was probably one of the most profound experiences in my awakening journey, was when this other entity, this higher self, came through and spoke directly to me. And I don't remember exactly what they said. I have the recording somewhere, but ultimately they really hammered home the point that, like, this hypnosis, it's a part of my my purpose in this lifetime, and they encouraged me to keep going. And it was, it was like being, I think about those moments in the Bible when, one of the random, men is out in the desert, and suddenly God came down and he spoke from a cloud, and he said, gave them some instructions or something like that. And it was honestly a moment like that where I had basically God talking to me, saying, keep going, you're doing the right thing, keep going. Um, right? Exactly, Emma. How cool. Funny how those people are put on our path. Absolutely. And there have been more people since, and it really is uh, such a cool thing to look back and see the ways that those people and those situations shape you and move you into position uh, to share your purpose with the world, to share your gifts and your talents. Um, and so it was really, that was further confirmation of what I had found out in my own first hypnosis experience, which, y'all, I'm too chatty. We're almost at the hour here, so I'm not going to be able to share my first hypnosis session experience, but I will reschedule that and make sure that I share that with y'all in another context. But I do want to finish up my journey here and give you guys kind of up until the present, because our awakening, I feel like the awakening journey just continues to unfold, and the more that you Yes, I will have to do a part two. There's too much to talk about, I guess. Hopefully you've been enjoying it. Um, Thank you, Lisa. Um, and so it was really as I continued on this hypnosis path and continued to follow that drive that really, I guess, accelerated my awakening. Because up until that point, my awakening was pretty secular, I guess you could say, um, and versus spiritual, it was pretty secular. And I was starting to open my eyes to what was going on in the larger world and in politics and in culture and society. But the spirituality side of things, like I was still kind of figuring it out, and hypnosis really showed me and helped me to uh, see a version or a paradigm that really resonated with me, and um, was really those catalyst moments that accelerated me towards where I am now. And many of those like moments of exploring new topics and exploring things that I had no prior knowledge of, or had only read in a book, happened in my sessions. And so I do have some of that on my channel that you can check out, the different session stories where I talk about different pieces of information that came through and different kind of pieces of the puzzle that helped to formulate at least my current worldview and my current understanding of the universe. I think, and many of you can probably resonate with this, that the more that I learn and the more that I see of the cosmos, the more I'm like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. I might know like bits and pieces. I might know, uh, at a certain level what's going on, or from a certain, from my perspective, I can see what's going on. But the more that I learn, the more I realize there is just so much going on out there uh, that a lot of it, I think, is beyond what we'll be able to understand in our current human brains, or at least in a conscious sense. I think from a subconscious perspective, from our higher self perspective, when we soften and relax, I think we can understand a little bit more. But anyway, all of these moments during my sessions, and then also outside my sessions, as I continued to devour information and knowledge and listen to other people's perspectives and listen to other people's takes on things and their experiences, and really learning to be as open-minded as possible, and not say, oh, they're talking about angels, that's BS, because my past, like, you got to be open to what people are saying, what people are sharing, um and then use your discernment to say, well, does that resonate with me? Is that the reality I'm living in? And I certainly have learned that I'm not going to resonate with everyone, and I'm not going to resonate with everyone's experience out there, because we have our individual realities and our individual paradigms, but we also have this collective paradigm that we're building together. And so it's all much more complicated than black and white. But I think that that's, yeah, that's an important part of the puzzle. Um, because throughout my experiences with hypnosis and talking to clients' higher selves, delving into past lives, dipping into the future, and starting to have clients go into the future, all of these different pieces help me to understand that this concept of oneness and recognizing the God in all of us and in all of nature and in all of the cosmos, and recognizing um, that there was a higher power, and I was a part of it. That was hugely transformational for me, and I think was really, one of those, again, huge pivotal paradigm shift moments where I was able to understand what was going on in a larger context. And I think the idea of past lives as well was something that really resonated with me, because even when I was young, I really didn't understand the Christian idea that you have this one lifetime, and that one lifetime is the time that you get to realize that you need Jesus and that you need to accept his sacrifice for your sins. You need to ask for forgiveness. You need to get on that Jesus train. And I always thought, well, what about those children that die when they're little kids? Like, how does that work? Or, when I was in high school, I had two girls who got in a car accident months before our graduation and died at 18. And it was just like, are is that their time to get it right? Did they lose out on getting to heaven because they died early versus that person who lived until 88? It just really didn't make sense to me. And of course, not everything is like logical in the cosmos, but I think my intuition was telling me that something wasn't right. And so I think that was another big shift in my beliefs and my understanding of the world, and helped me to understand really what we're doing here and why we're here. And I certainly don't claim to know it all or understand it all, like I've said a few times. But I think that the more that I learned about what I didn't know, the more I got it. And certainly, like the lost history pieces and the understanding more about the different dimensions, like these are all pieces of the puzzle and parts of, I guess, my paradigm and how I shifted into this space. But it really is, it's all those little puzzle pieces that get you to the point where you're at. And it really has been a wild ride. I certainly didn't share everything. I've had many different experiences during meditation that showed me a world beyond what we see with our two eyes or sense with our five physical senses. And so a lot of those experiences shaped my journey and pushed me to again open my eyes to what was really going on, and um helped me to get to this point. It's also really funny how just how many things we don't realize in the moment shape us, and then again looking back you see how those pieces fit together, and how like we're talking about, those people are on your path to help guide you. And I now know that I made those plans with those people before we got into it, and they showed up right on time. They did their mission. They helped me out in the way that they agreed to, and I helped them in the way that I agreed to, and then we went our separate ways. And so yeah, I mean, I feel like there's still more that I could share with y'all. And like Emma said, maybe I'll share a part two of this, because it's been really fun to share and to talk about. I haven't necessarily talked a ton about my journey thus far. I've shared little bits and pieces, but it's definitely different to talk through the whole thing, and kind of see that narrative and see that art, and see how I got here and reflect on it. And I thank you all so much for spending this time with me and listening to my story. I hope that some of it resonated with you. Some of it, was interesting and exciting, because it certainly was exciting to live. And yeah, there's certainly more that I would love to share with y'all. And so I'll have to do a part two of this, because I didn't even get into my first hypnosis experience, which really was very, very transformational, experiencing it for the first time myself. Thank you so much, Emma. I appreciate that. And thank you so much, Beth. Thank you, Corbin. So, the announcements that I had to share with y'all quickly before we go. I am going to be on Deep Dives in the Desert this weekend on Sunday. We're doing 5 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. Pacific Time. So that is linked in my social media. So if you need to, I will share that out, and I'll make sure to share that as well in the comments here so you guys can check it out. Other than that, I am also so excited to have Lisa from Deep Dives in the Desert on my channel next week. She's going to be joining me on next Friday, 3 p.m. same time here, and we're going to be talking about her new offerings, her intuitive readings, what she's offering, sharing all about that and kind of how she got into it. I've had the privilege now of being on their channel, and I'm so excited to be in conversation with Lisa and to deep dive on her and her experiences, because I'm sure a lot of you have seen her over on her channel. It'll be fun to have her in the interview seat and to get to hear her story even more. Last announcement is that next week I have a special group event that I will be announcing and sharing with y'all that is going to be going live and will be happening early March. So I'm not going to share the details of that quite yet, but I wanted to give y'all just a little bit of a sneak peek on that. It'll be a really exciting opportunity that I hope you all are interested in, and I hope to see some of you there. So stay tuned. I'm going to share that next week once I have all the details pulled together and the timing is right. So other than that, of course, remember that you can check out my website. I do have bookings through there. You can check out my free consultation if you want to chat with me before scheduling a session. That could be if you're unsure of which session is going to be the best fit for you, or if you want to know more about my practice, if you have questions for me, those types of things. I'm more than happy to meet with people and to discuss what you're looking for out of hypnosis. Other than that, I definitely am very, very, very grateful for all of you soul family who have joined me live. So thankful for everyone watching this on replay. I really do appreciate your support, and it's been a beautiful time sharing the space with y'all. And I've really felt the love and felt the support here from all of you. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because again, it really does help me as I'm growing this platform, growing this channel, and helps me to get the information that I'm sharing out to as many folks as possible, because I really do think there's so much value in the information that can come through in hypnosis, and sharing our awakening stories, sharing our journeys really, really helps, because I got to this point and I awakened because I heard someone else's journey and I heard someone else's experience. So yeah, all of the love to you all. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to see you next time, and hope you all have a good weekend. All right, bye y'all. Thank you.